All right, let's talk about the mechanics of psyops. Psyop, P-S-Y-O-P, is short for psychological operation. As opposed to controlling the physical matter of whatever you're trying to control, whether it be a flower or a human, you're going to attack its psyche. Now, for a lot of people, especially those who have been educated or miseducated, they don't have a concrete image in their mind for what we call the psyche. But it's actually quite simple. If I'm not going to control you through physical means, then I'm going to be controlling you through spatial means. I'm not going to control you with physical force. I'm going to control you with spatial force. That's what the psychological operation is. The biggest psychological operation that's ever occurred, probably in the cosmos itself, is something that all of us in America get to participate in, either directly or indirectly. And this is what is loosely been identified as race. It becomes very difficult, though, because when you include other people outside of the black and white spectrum into it, all of them have a culture. And so you could say the Mexican race or Asian races, but all of them are actually just cultural expressions, and it's a misnomer to include them into the race. Black and white technically are the only races, because race is a social construct tied to the psychological operation, again, the spatial operation of controlling people. America's always been multicultural, but as the invaders came in order to disrupt unity, they had to categorize people a certain way. And so they categorized people based on skin, which created a caste system. People fit in between yellow, brown, pink, even the rainbow itself, and the people who operate according to the rainbow use the same mechanism. But the original psychological operation, the original dream, the original, if you're in Naruto or maybe some of the other animes, the original genjutsu is the black and white, the casting into duality, even though the beings who are participating in it have mastered duality many times. You have a left foot, you have a right foot, you have a left eye, you have a right eye, you have a forward tongue, you have a backward tongue, you have left ear, right ear. You as a being have mastered duality, mastered it. You wake up as a human in America and you're cast back into it forcefully cast back into the system of duality that you have mastered, only for you to decide whether you're going to participate or not. Now, the funny thing is, most people who decide not to play the game are critiqued by the people who are playing the game as being what? If I don't cling on to the bullshit slave narrative that's been given to me, I'm my Uncle Tom. But you never asked me where I was from. You just judged me based on the color of my skin. You told me I was black. I ain't say I was black. But this is where it gets tricky, because you know who told me I was black first? My parents. You know who told my parents that they were black? Their parents. But you go back far enough, right? When I go back 1, 2, 3, 4 to the 5th generation, it wasn't no black and no white, and our identities didn't lie within such a loose construct. Go back 4 or 5 generations, the label that they gave us was Indian. We were native to the land here, in the same way a Chinese person, a Japanese person, or a Korean person can be related to the land there. But for some reason, there's this mass delusion of idiocy that allows people to forget that there's people already here on the land, all throughout the land. And to think that a landmass as big as America isn't going to have a diversified populace, whether that be within the way that they live or the phenotypical expression that you call skin. There's going to be this mass diversification across the land. And yet you expect everyone initially to fit into black and white. This is what a psychological operation is. We're going to control you through the narrative. We are not going to force you and your physical to do X, Y, or Z, but we are going to control you through the narrative. The only reason they were able to do this is because they gained control over the language. They even called it English, which is another thing that we won't get into right now. The language of angles gave to England, even though they can't speak it well. Oh, man. Psychological operations work by controlling your identity through free will and consent. They give you two options. Are you white or are you black? And you are going to choose the one that fits you. If you have an IQ, and really it's more like an ID, an intellectual difference, as opposed to an intellectual quotient. But if you have the correct intellect and apply it the right way, you'll realize that all dualities are false and you don't have to participate. And yet, if over the years they subject you to standardized testing, multiple choice options, you begin to believe that this is the function of life itself. And now they got you stuck in the psychological operation. I want you to really think about it for a second. Some people will call themselves black or even white. And when you tell them that they are neither black nor white because nothing on their skin color allows them to do so, right? They'll be mad at you. They'll be mad at you. Wait, what? You're not black? If I'm not black, I'm African American. No, you only can come from one landmass at a time. So if we're going to use landmasses for identities, you are from the landmass that you are from. You're not a black American and you're not a white American, you're just American. But therein lies the issue, because you cannot look across in the direct experience that you have and evaluate the emotive input that somebody else has. You have to use the narrative and the TV and something else as opposed to the direct experience that you have with the individual. This is exactly what it means to be brainwashed, and yet most people have been. This is the effect of the war. It's like if everybody were to be walking around with one arm cut off. The effect of the psychological war is that you are walking around with one side of your brain not turned on. Which is quite unfortunate because you need both sides of your brain. You know, it's like saying you just have large intestine working and not the small intestine. You only have one side of the brain working and you expect to function in this society. How? I want to know. I do. I'm just curious. I'm not judging. I just want to know, because in my experience, it doesn't work. And yet we continue to cling on to the experience that doesn't work. The fuck? No. Actually, the fuck. There's a little bit of judgment in there. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't, but it's no longer the judgment of any individual that I come across in my direct experience, because I know that this is a psychological operation. A story was written a long time ago, and then the people were not taught how to read. A story was written a long time ago, and people were not taught how to write. Cannot blame the individual. I can only judge the system, and as I walk my spiritual path, I understand the necessity not even to do that. I forgive the system in its ignorance in the same way I would forgive a human being in its ignorance. Forgive them, mother, even when they know exactly what they're doing wrong. But give them everything that they deserve. You're not black, you're not white, you're light, you're dark, and a strange mix of an energy between those two polarities. That's where your identity lies, in the light. But if you don't see it, you don't feel it, and so be it. Love and peace. Peace and love. See y'all later.